motto of the tour is very, very simple: feed the poor, fight the power, and rock the fuck out. And we've been holding to that motto, so far. So, for example, in Los Angeles, we visited PATH, which is an organization called People Assisting the Homeless, where we made a meal for the homeless clients there and sat and ate with them, and both toured the facility and learned their stories and invited some of them to the show the next day, which was at the Troubadour, where we rocked the place to the ground with Flea and Slash and a Jane's Addiction reunion and Cypress Hill. Then off to the next city, which was Washington, D.C., which benefit an organization called Road Recovery, which helps children and teens whose lives have been destroyed by, or lives have been adversely affected by drug and alcohol addiction. Then in New Orleans, it was an organization called Sweet Home New Orleans, which helps rebuild the homes where, we went to a couple of sites and helped rebuild the homes of musicians who are still ass out after Katrina. Then Asheville, North Carolina was the next stop, where we worked with an organization called Just Economics to encourage businesses there to pay a living wage to all of their employees, and we strong-armed a bakery into changing their policy and pay their workers a living wage. And now today we're in Washington, D.C., where the show benefits Iraq veterans against the war, and we move on from here.
How do you pick the different organizations that you decide to be involved with?
Well, some of them, I've been involved with for years, and then to the person running that side of the Justice Tour is a woman named Erin Potts, Erinpotts, and she was the organizer of the Tibetan Freedom Concerts in the mid and late '90s, and she's a friend and is doing a great job making sure that each musical stop is impactful in an activist way.
Got you. That's really great that some of your friends, like you were saying Flea and Slash and all those people Perry Farrell came and supported you. But are you disappointed that more artists are more socially or politically active?
Oh, heavens no. I mean, it's not artists' responsibility to be socially active. It's artists' responsibility, I believe, to follow their convictions. And if they have, political or philanthropic convictions, then they have a responsibility to follow them. But I certainly don't think that art should pretend to, just because they're in the spotlight. I wouldn't limit it to art. I'd say everyone in their vocation should follow their convictions, whether they're journalists or musicians or carpenters.
I totally agree. I guess I'm just always romantic of eras like the '60s, where so many artists, there were so many social issues that were so important, and so many artists seem to get behind them. Where it just seems like today, so many artists avoid dealing with it at all.
Well, bad presidents make for good music, and we've seen over the course of the last couple of years, at least. I mean, it's hard to name an artist that hasn't, at least in some way, commented on the desperate state of world affairs. I mean, from Pink to from Pink to Public Enemy.
Right.
It's hard to swing a cat and not hit an artist that isn't affected in the same way that all of us are by what's going on, by the dramatically bad government that we've had for the past 7.5 years.
Right. Let me ask you a question about the Nightwatchman project musically. It's really definitely like a departure, obviously, from what you did with Rage and Audio Slave. And is this something that you've always wanted to do, or is it more of kind of a evolution of your musical journey? I
don't know that it's. It's certainly, in some ways, I don't think it's a departure at all from my work with Rage Against the Machine, and that it's music that's very uncompromising, and music that expresses a strong point of view in a very unfiltered way. And even though it's not played with Marshall stacks, there are many musical acts out there that use walls of Marshall stacks but still come across light as a feather, whereas sometimes 3 chords strummed on an acoustic guitar with a few words of the truth sprinkled in, and a harmonica solo can be just as heavy and devastating as anything in the Metallica catalog. So I came to the genre of folk music later on and realized, the important link in the chain that it was, between, people like Woody Guthrie through bands like The Clash and Public Enemy and Rage Against the Machine and System of a Down and early Bob Dylan, and it's all part of the same cloth, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I definitely heard the influences of like the Dylan and the Woody Guthrie. You know, it's cool. My mom was really into folk music, and she was a big Woody Guthrie fan, and she used to tell me all this stuff about folk. And you know, I'm a hip hop guy by mostly, and that's when I kind of initially got into it. And I always saw so much similarities in kind of that authentic. It's only about the realness of the, you know. And I thought it was amazing. Yeah. Let me ask you something. I had read that, on the topic of hip-hop, I had read that you and Boots of the Coup were going to do, at one point, a project together. Is that still happening?
Well, Boots is on tour with me right now. We're going to be playing tonight at the Black Cat in Washington, D.C. And, we've worked on some songs together, and it's just, you know, it's one of kind of many projects sort of going on in my world that at some point I hope sees the light of day.
Okay.
But I think he's great. He's a tremendous talent, and you know, we've played shows together since 2003. You know, and I think he's a great lyricist and frontman.
That's cool. Can you explain to our listeners what the Axis of Justice is and why you started it?
Sure. Axis of Justice is a nonprofit organization founded by myself and Serge Tankian from System of a Down to bring together progressive-minded musicians, local grassroots political organizations, and fans of music. Because, you know, one question that people ask me throughout the entire history of Rage Against the Machine, and still ask me today, it's how do I get involved? And we tried to answer that question with Axis of Justice to make it very easy for music fans in their local community to hook up with grassroots organizations that we endorse. And you go to axisofjustice.org. We also run an alternative news service there. An independent media service there as well. So it's sort of one-stop shopping for the music fan who aspires to be an activist.